Williamson Herald High School football highlights are sponsored by Moody's Tire and Auto Service with 2 locations to serve you in Williamson County. Moody's Tire, doing it right for over 70 years. Find out more at moody'stire.com.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome into the Williamson Herald High School Football Extra. I'm Joe Williams, the sports editor of the Williamson Herald, along with Maurice Patton, the executive editor of MoPattonSports.com and the sports editor of the Columbia Daily Herald. Our neighbor down in Murray County, and of course behind the scenes, Charles Pulliam, taking care of all the stuff that we ain't got the slightest idea what he does or how he does it, but he does it really well.
He does it excellent, and if you've not seen it, the piece that he did on the young man out at Fairview this past weekend, Hunter Hammond, check that out. It's Charles at his best right there.
Yeah, but you better make sure you got a tissue or two. I'm not ashamed to say that.
Yeah.
Hey, it is week number 10, technically. Since we 10. Since we dropped week 0 this year, and now we're down to the cutting. It's time to do the harvest, and a couple of games won't go a long way, but will determine regional champions, and probably the biggest one in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, where the Franklin Rebels at 7-1, 5-0 in Region 6-3A.
3-6A.
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 What did I say?
You said 6-3A.
I did. I do that a lot. Yeah, we'll get to them in a minute. But it's Region 3-6A. You're exactly right. The top division in the state. They got to go to Mount Juliet. Mount Juliet, 6-2, 4-1, I believe. Mm-hmm. And this basically, Maurice, is for the title.
You're talking about two teams that between them have won 12 straight games.
Yeah.
Franklin lost their opener, hadn't lost since. Mount Juliet lost 2 of their first 3. Hadn't lost since, and two teams playing awfully well, and they've gotten a lot of people's notice. It's going to be the Friday Night Rivals telecast on my TV 30 on Friday night. So if you're not going to make the drive up I-40, and I can certainly understand if you wouldn't that time of day, it's awful. You can see it. You can see it on my TV 30, but it's going to be a heck of a ball game whether you're there or whether you're watching it on TV. I'm probably going to try to DVR this one because I'm afraid I'll be elsewhere, but huge game.
These two teams are an awful lot alike. They're going to try to pound things. They're going to try to control the line of scrimmage. As you said, both of them on winning streaks. Interesting to note, Mount Juliet's last 5 wins, though, while they're all wins, come against teams that are combined 17 and 22.
You play who you play. I mean, you can't fault them. And again, their 2 losses, their losses were to Cane Ridge and to Ravenwood back-to-back. Lost to Cane Ridge 28-19. Cane Ridge is ranked number 2 in the state in 5A. Lost to Ravenwood 12-7, and Ravenwood has kind of been up and down, but they are the defending 6A state champions. So Mount Juliet has righted themselves, not necessarily against the greatest of competition, but I don't think Trey Perry's going to give any of them back at this point either. So, and for what it's worth, now Franklin's last couple of wins have been against McGavock and Antioch. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe that's right.
So, they've both taken advantage of the schedule where they had the opportunity to do so. But, you got to like the way they're playing. Obviously, playing with a lot of confidence right now.
Interesting to note, probably the marquee win for both schools, wins against Wilson Central. In the case of Mount Juliet, they were at Wilson Central for the Wildcats' homecoming, scored 20-some-odd points in the fourth quarter, forced overtime, came away with a win. Wilson Central comes to Franklin last week, or the week before rather, and Franklin pushes them to the last minute and then scores with 9 seconds left to beat them. So, you got to believe these are the 2 best teams in the region. Although Wilson Central is sitting there going, yeah, with the exception of maybe 10 seconds.
Well, I don't think they give them any asterisks for it, though.
That's
and
right.
Like you said, Mount Juliet goes to Wilson Central. Wilson Central was undefeated at the time of that ball game. Mount Juliet gets out with the 39-32 win and kind of started to restore some of what was expected out of Mount Juliet early in the year. Again, they had kind of sputtered in those back-to-back losses. I think that was the win for Mount Juliet that got people started to thinking, okay, maybe this team is what we thought they were going to be coming into the year. And like you said, Franklin got up on them but never could really put them away. Eventually won 42-35, but had to fight and scrap to get there. And talked to Donnie Webb after that one, and his concern was we never could get them stopped. We didn't get as many stops as I would have anticipated us getting going into the game. Weren't able to get pressure on the quarterback like they intended to. I don't think pressure on the quarterback will necessarily be the issue in this ball game, because I'm not sure how many times Mount Juliet's going to throw it.
No kidding. Probably very few based on what they've done. The other critical game won't be for a regional title, but Maurice, it might as well be. It'll be for second place, pretty much. Summit with a chance to lock down second place in Region 5, 5A. The Spartans, a young, sixth year that they've been playing. Folks were excited when they won their third game this year. And Brian Coleman and that bunch just keep getting better and better. Ty Carter goes over 1,000 yards last week at Stewart's Creek. Had they beaten Stewart's Creek last year, they would have been able to go to the playoffs. They didn't. I'm thinking this is going to be a great revenge game.
I think it's going to be a great ball game. Stewart's Creek just dropped a tough one at home against Shelbyville this past weekend, 49-47. Had a 47-yard field goal hit off the crossbar and kicked the wrong way to decide that one. Stewart's Creek scoring a lot of points, rushing for a lot of yards. They've gone to a triple option over there. They had a quarterback get hurt, and David Martin's trying to make chicken salad out of something else and doing a pretty good job of it. Stewart's Creek 4-4 overall, 3-2 in the region, and they are trying to lock down a playoff spot as well. But like you said, Summit's looking for that number 2 spot in a first-round home game, and right now you got to like the Spartans' chances at 6-2 overall and 4-1 in that region with their only lost to Independence.
Speaking of Region 5, 5A, next victim for Independence, they go down to face Franklin County, and I don't want to be too prognosticative, but I think Indy's going to come home with a win. Franklin County comes in at they're 3-5 overall, 2-3 in the region, and we remember when Franklin County was one of the top programs in Middle Tennessee. They are not quite at that level these days, and that they've got to win out to get to 500. And with Indy coming to town Friday night, doesn't look like that's necessarily going to be the case. Independence has won 23 straight ball games now, and they are just lighting people up. I think the bigger problem for Scott Blade is trying to keep that edge over this last few weeks before the playoffs get going. They just thumped Columbia last week 53-7. They were up 53-0 at the half. So just keeping people sharp, knowing that at some point we're going to have to play a 4-quarter ball game is kind of the challenge that they're facing right now. And they really haven't been tested to make that complete game yet.
Certainly not recently. I mean, they played this team to a 21-20 game in the season opener. They played Centennial 31-21 in week 2 in that 2-day affair that they had. But since then, like you said, not been greatly pushed. And I would say, if I'm Scott Blade, I'm wondering what's going to happen when we do have to play 4 quarters. And that's kind of a tough spot to be in, I think.
Speaking of these guys behind us, let's move up to Region 7, 5A, where Brentwood, the Bruins, coming home this week to face Henry County, and boy, could they not be the most popular team in the county if they were to knock off the Patriots.
They'd certainly be awfully popular over in the Cool Springs area, right. I think. So, this and I'm not sure how much Brentwood is in the mindset of doing Centennial any favors, but they certainly could with a win here. It would take a lot off of that ball game next weekend, and at the same time, it'd do Brentwood some help as well.
Sure, I was going to say, and the catch to that is last week the Centennial Brentwood game, it wound up, or 2 weeks ago, I guess it was. It was last week. Okay.
Last week. Time flies when you have.
Boy, it does, doesn't it? Especially when you get to be my age. But the loss moved Brentwood down just a little bit further into a position of having to travel. If they can beat Henry County, Centennial beats Henry County next week, all of a sudden, these guys just might get a home game out of this playoff series.
Yeah, this is a tough stretch for Henry County. You talk about Brentwood, you talk about Centennial, but Henry County's got their work cut out for them as well. They come in here 5-2 overall, 5-0 in region play, so they've still got hopes of a region championship if they can get a win here, which won't be easy.
No.
And if they can get Centennial at Paris next weekend. So again, big stretch for the Patriots, but Brentwood's got a chance to take care of some business for themselves and do the Cougars a favor as well. So
speaking of the Cougars, they get a chance to maybe put one on Rossview, the team that shocked these Bruins earlier in the year. And I still consider that a shocking win. I'm not sure if those two teams played 3 times, if this bunch wouldn't take 2 out of the 3.
I would agree with you, but I think Ron Lambert has done a really good job up at Rossview. He's a former defensive coordinator at Tennessee State. He can throw some D on you, and I think that was probably the case here. Meanwhile, Carson Shacklett's still kind of getting the hang of things at that point at quarterback. I think he's really grown up over the last few weeks, really become a dynamic playmaker in that offense, both with the pass and tucking the ball himself. And I think going back to that Henry County game, I think he's going to give them some problems. But that Rossview team, that might have been their last hurrah. I think they're 4-4 overall, 4-1 in region play, but I think maybe the schedule has been a little kinder to them than it has been to some other folks in the region. Their schedule is probably a little bit more backloaded than some of these other folks. So I don't know that win was as big as these wins will be for Centennial and Brentwood.
Let's look at well, let me back up. There's one other game I've kind of thrown into the 5 big games, excuse me, and the last of the group, not to say the others aren't big, we'll get to those, but these are kind of the ones that are working towards titles. Fairview on the road, got to go to Camden. The Yellow Jackets undefeated, as we sometimes kid them, the other undefeated team in the county. Been out there, Chris Hughes out there doing his thing very quietly on the corner. And come playoff time, I think they're going to surprise some folks with how deep they go. But they got to get past this one Friday night, going to Camden, old rival, region rival. Camden's got 1 loss on them that we really didn't expect that they would have, but they do. So obviously they're beatable. If they're beatable, Chris Hughes will figure out how to do it again.
Yeah, this is basically for the Region 6 3A championship here. And again, Fairview 8-0, and I don't know if Chris Hughes was honest with you, if you shot him up with some truth serum. I don't know if he'd tell you that he expected to be 8-0 at this point, starting a sophomore quarterback. But we've talked a lot about Cam Harris-Lusk, and we've talked a lot about that senior tandem at running back, Jake Bedford and Hunter Caldwell, who have really done a great job taking some pressure off Harris-Lusk and allowing him to kind of grow up over the course of the season, and I think he's done exactly that. And that's been a big key to Fairview's success to this point.
Hughes is one of those guys who can take those young quarterbacks, as he has done so many times over the years, and turn them into 3-year starters and make them successful.
Absolutely. This is his 3rd sophomore quarterback. Started with Jack Ramey back in the day, and then Hunter Zimmerman the last 3 years, and he has had some success with those guys. And he would tell you that probably Zimmerman's best year was his sophomore year. Yeah. So I'm sure that he's hopeful to continue to see improvement out of KHL, I think they call it out there. But he's doing a great job right now, and again, got Fairview in a great position to win a region championship if they can go on the road and do some damage over Camden Friday night.
When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about Paige, Ravenwood, Grace Christian, all those coming up. So stay with us here on the Williamson Herald High School Sports Extra.
Visit us at Moody's Tire for all your tire and automotive needs.
Stop by and see us at 1600 Columbia Avenue.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Williamson Herald Sports Extra, brought to you by Moody's Tire and Auto. Maurice, a couple of more games that are kind of big. Paige at home against White House. This is not the region title game, but they got to have this win to set up the region title game next week against Marshall County.
Well, and the thing is, this isn't the White House that you're used to seeing. No. Blue Devils coming in here winless at 0-8, and not really sure what's going on with Jeff Porter's bunch up there, and it's tough to see. I was talking to somebody not long ago. When you see these traditional area powers struggle like this, it's kind of tough. And White House has won a state championship and kind of been a mainstay around here, so it's tough to see this. But, you know, Paige coming off a huge win last week at the Brickyard down in Pulaski against Giles County. Got some momentum going. again, got a huge game next week. They go to Marshall County, right?
Yeah,
That one's on the road.
I believe so.
So they need to get this one, and they need to go in and take care of business against White House coming to their place. And from a confidence standpoint, from a momentum standpoint, really like the way they're playing right now. I didn't expect them to go down and get that one at Giles County, but they pulled it out. And you know, when you've got a kicker who is committed to a Southeastern Conference school like a Brent Samaglia, he did what he's supposed to do in that situation. Knocked through a 23-yarder with, 11 seconds left
like that,
to win it. And I wish I could have been there for Cruz Kerrigan's kick six, because that at the high school level in particular, to have the what's the word I'm looking for? To be heady enough to see that.
Football smarts.
There you go. Intellect.
Yes.
Yeah. To see that and realize, hey, I can make a play right here and beat the halftime buzzer with that to give his team some momentum going into the break.
And let's explain what happened here. Going into halftime, Giles County trying to kick a field goal. It comes up short. Buzzer sounded. He gets the ball at the half-yard line.
Which, now stop for a minute.
Okay.
Okay, this kid is trying a 47-yard field goal. It lands in the field of play.
Yeah.
I'm sure if David O'Connor could rethink that one, he would rethink it. But he's trying to get 3 cheap points, trying to push a 21-7 lead to 24-7. Instead, again, Kerrigan fields it just inside the goal line and takes it to the house. And again, didn't get to see it, but you know, the configuration for that just isn't good. When you've got field goal unit on the field, you're not putting guys out there who, A, are used to chasing people, or B, used to tackling people. And when you've got a defensive back with the ball running against a kicker, a holder, and 9 offensive linemen, you know, the odds are definitely in his favor. And so, you know, Kerrigan had a chance to make a play for his team and did so. Makes it a 21-14 game, and Paige kind of rode that momentum in the second half.
And that's also where you've got to go back to that football intellect, because let's face it, you know, when you line up for a field goal, you listen as an old center, it's kind of like the punt. You listen for the kick. But on field goal, extra point, you listen for the kick. Once the foot's in the ball, it's either good or it's not good. You know, we're going off the field one way or another. To think somebody's going to get it and come back this way, that doesn't happen.
There's kind of a type of reaction there. And then we got to go try to tackle somebody. And by the time you get in that mindset of we got to go tackle somebody, that somebody is by you. Yeah. So kudos to Paige for making that great play and to going on the road and pulling that ball game out. And again, they've got some momentum. This is a big one that they need to take care of before they go and try to win a region championship at Marshall County.
Great coaching to have them ready for that one. Also, Grace Christian Academy trying to get a couple more wins. They've got to go down to Huntland, home of Johnny Majors and the Majors family, and that is sometimes not the most friendly of places for outsiders.
Yeah, and Huntland has had a good program, a good ball club. They've got a kid down there, DJ Taylor, a linebacker, running back, who is committed to Wake Forest. So I'm imagining GCA is going to have their hands full trying to get that kid stopped. But on the other side of the ball, Austin Amore, again, 9 touchdowns a couple of weeks ago. So I'm sure Huntland is trying to figure out what are we going to do with this guy. And if they get too focused on Amore, you've got Gavin Ford and some other guys that can make some plays. I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions go down here and get one. I think they've got an opportunity.
Final game we'll look at tomorrow night. Ravenwood is at home on Friday night. I say tomorrow night, I should say Friday night, against Wilson Central. The Wilson Central team, one that is not real happy at the moment, and a Ravenwood team which, quite honestly, I think is trying to figure out if they're ready to keep going or if they're just ready for this thing to be over.
You know, you didn't see them. You weren't at that game, but that game Friday night against Overton, 34-16 loss, tough loss for that program on a number of different levels. I don't think they really expected to get handled the way they did. And from what I can gather, might have been a little bit of a loss of poise in some key situations there, and it'll be interesting to see how they regroup at home against, like you said, a Wilson Central team that's not real happy right now. They got off to, what, a 5-0 start?
Yep.
Before they lost to Mount Juliet, then lost to Franklin, and a team that thought that they were going to be playing for a region championship is now just trying to stay in the top half of the region and trying to secure a first-round home game in the 6A playoffs. So I think they're going to roll into Ravenwood looking to make a statement, and Ravenwood needs to recognize that and be ready to act accordingly, I think.
I think you're exactly right. Hopefully they're going to come turn things around and just meet Wilson Central and smack them in the mouth.
Not literally.
Well, through the face mask,
Well, didn't you say this team had 10 personal fouls last week?
I think it was 11 is what was reported. So
let's go easy on the smacking in the mouth.
Okay. Hey, I'm just, I'm pulling from my Wilco guys. What can I tell you?
I understand. But let's go easy on the smacking in the mouth. He didn't mean it literally.
We'll talk.
Or
when this
maybe
is
he
over.
did. I don't know.
We've been around each other way too long. All right. Well, there are your top games coming up this week in Williamson County. And listen, go out, grab one on Friday night. Go somewhere and see a high school football game. Chances are getting fewer and fewer as we do get into week number 10. For Maurice Patton and Charles Pulliam, I'm Joe Williams. You can follow us on Twitter, which is coming through here somewhere.
Wherever Charles decides to put it.
I'm not even going to try to hit on all of them this week because I always mess them up, and I just depend on Charles to pull me out, and he does. And you do.
We try.
Well, for those two guys, I'm Joe Williams. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you've had a good time. We'll see you at a ballpark soon. Thanks again for joining us on the Williamson Herald High School Sports Extra.